Alright, welcome back to the Pocket Dimension where we paint all the things. Streaming live now on Twitch, YouTube, excuse me, oh my goodness, dying here. Twitch, YouTube, and Rumble. So, welcome. Glad you're here. If you are here, if this is your first time watching, I've got an echo going on somewhere. Hold on just a second. Be right back. What in the world? Alright, and I'm back. Alrighty then, here we are. So, as you may realize, I am working on some dudes from the American War of Independence. These are Continental Light Infantry. You can tell because of the funny hats. Everybody had funny hats back then. So, working on these. Kind of getting to a spot where I'm feeling a little bogged down with them, actually. But we'll go with it. See what we can get done. Yeah. So, working on those tonight. Trying to get those done and off of my plate so I can get caught up on some other things that I need to work on for Ralpartha Legacy. And, yeah. So, I've got things on my desk to get done for other people so that I can start working on my own projects. That's just how it is in the big world of not quite professional painting. Because if I were professional, I'd get paid for it. If you do want to consider hiring me for your project, prices are negotiable. So, yeah. There we go. So, let's see. Other things. Other things. Of course, now, here's a cool thing. Use my code at dubby.gg for Dubby is an energy drink with all sorts of wonderful flavors. I like it. It works for me. I need to get some more. But right now is a good time for you to use my code Rocket Fuel, ROKKITFUEL, for 20% off your purchase. That's 20% off your purchase right now at dubby.gg if you use my code Rocket Fuel, ROKKITFUEL, Rocket Fuel, at dubby.gg. Also, if you like inexpensive miniatures, high detail, inexpensive miniatures, check out Next Level Miniatures and use my code ROCKET5, ROKKIT5. That's ROCKET5, ROKKIT, followed by the number 5, ROCKET5, at nextlevelminiatures.com for 10% off your order. So check it out. Help out the channel. Help me out. We all need help these days. Some more than others. Alright, so let's go ahead and get stuck in painting up the Continental Light Infantry here. So, As you know, we've been working on these for the last few streams, trying to get this done. Working on the cross belting, and as you can see, I'm getting a little bit out of the lines on this, and I think I'm getting some places, some white where there should be blue. It's hard to tell. Metal miniatures. Hey, T-shirt, nice to see you. Good to see you. So I'm working on some historical figures. T-shirt historian. You'd be interested in this. These are the light Continental, light infantry. So just working on these, trying to get things done. Glad to have you here, T-shirt. Doing some painting yourself. Great. Well, we'll just paint right along. Hopefully you'll have me on in the background. So we can paint together tonight. If you are painting out there in the wonderful world of the digital neighborhood, we get to all paint along tonight. We got Patty over here on Rumble. We got T-shirt over here on the YouTube. Having some good guests in chat tonight. That's pretty cool. So, anyhow, I'm a little out of the lines on these. Metal figures for historicals, especially 15 millimeters, I'm starting to get the sense are very much a good enough for gaming proposition. Historicals have... Some of these historical figures have difficulties like lines, like certain pieces of equipment. These lines on these straps, it'll go here and then it will disappear over here and it doesn't actually exist. Or it'll start out on the back like this. It goes up to the shoulder, but it doesn't go anywhere after that. So it's very difficult to find out where things go. The sculpts, I think, are just generally historical gamers have always been more concerned about the game. The figures are weird because for so many years people would worry about, those uniforms have the right number of buttons? Is that the right spacing of lace on those? How come you don't have the right collar? Well, grognards be darned. Historical figures have their challenges. I think they are sculpted by people who are gamers first and painters second. So, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is it works for our purposes. We're going to get them on the table. They're going to look nice. Nobody's going to be the wiser. It's just funny, some of the attitudes of historical gamers through the years about certain levels of detail, but they never actually had those levels of detail. And yeah, it's a very schizophrenic sort of thing, you know, with historical figures. So anyhow, let's get stuck in. We got the cross belting, turnbacks, and cuffs done on these guys. Pants are done. I'm a little bit out of lines on these. I'm going to have to go back and touch things up, but I'll worry about that when it's time to touch things up. So I'm going to set that group aside. I got that one done. This group needs some work. This group needs work. This group is about in the same level as that first one. And this one about the same. So those three groups are at the same level of completeness. And of course here are sergeants and ensigns and musicians in the hunting shirt. Hunting shirt is off-white ivory. Pants are white. Shoes are black. Wash is going to do a lot of heavy lifting there. There is some equipment to paint, to do white with, but we'll worry about that That'll be one of the last ones I worry about. So we're going to go ahead and get our trusty tile palette out here. Some people like wet palettes. Wet palettes are great. I've attempted to use them in the past. Mixed results. So we're going to go ahead and get some Pro-Acryl Titanium White. Put a little on the and get going here. Hope you know those dudes are tiny, but do you zenithal? I do not zenithal their t-shirt. I just work in layers. I don't zenithal. Not that I would never zenithal. It's just that it's not something that I started out ever doing. So I just do all my layers and all my colors as I go. I'm not a zenithal kind of guy. To me, that's just one more step between getting it out of the box, prepped, and onto the table for painting. So I just prime them and go. If I zenithal primed them, I feel like I would be priming them twice, if you know what I mean. But I think zenithal priming has a lot to do, there's a lot of benefits to it. It's just not something that I do, but it's great for like speed paint stuff, you know. Speed paint, slap chop, zenithal. You can even thin down your paints a little bit more if you're zenithaling because you get those natural highlights. So, I mean, it's a choice. It's a choice. I think that it's a good option to have. It's just not something that I really do. I did it one time a long time ago by accident, if that makes sense. T-shirt says, I like it since I use really thin layers, helps bring out the shadows and details, and yeah, it's awesome for speed paints. Yes, absolutely. One of my favorite products is Merlin's Magic Medium. So it helps the paint flow a little bit thinner, but it doesn't break it down like water does. So what I'll do is I'll put a little drop right beside the paints that I'm using, and I'll mix it in as we go. So it keeps the paint workable a little bit longer. And I don't live in a terribly dry climate, so I don't really have the problems of paint drying like somebody, say, living in Arizona or Texas or someplace like that. So, and I only put a couple of drops out anyway, and I usually use them up most of the way during my sessions. So, also, if you don't follow T-Shirt Historian here on YouTube, you should do that. He's got a show generally still streaming on Saturday. Are you? I haven't caught you for a couple of months. Here it seems like I've been so busy on Saturdays, what with local conventions and the like, but I don't know if you still go on Saturdays or not, but it's kind of a geek week in review sort of a show. So check out T-Shirt Historian. Give him a follow right here on the YouTube. He is an actual historian, as I understand it. So, let's see. Using speed paints. Let's see. Using speed paints as a color transparency and layers is nice for buildups. Yes, it is. Pro-Acryl just dropped their one-step paints, and I'm itching to try those. Yes, I actually got a sampler bottle at Adepticon. This is their Rust, and I have a project I'm going to use this on, so I haven't tried it yet, but I already kind of know how it's going to react with what I'm doing. So, what I'm going to be using this on. So, I have this Rust as their one-step Monument Hobbies Pro-Acryl one step. And then I'm going to also use it in conjunction with the Dirty Down Red Rust. Right? I'm planning on using that. And I got a bottle of Yellow Rust too. Remember, Yellow Rust is younger than Red Rust. Rust is lighter the younger it is. Let's see. We're transitioning to a new channel. Maybe a new time. The old channel is a full-on Fist of the North Star channel now since that took off. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Fist of the North Star. That was an old anime, I think, right? I sort of remember that. Wasn't there a video game about Fist of the North Star, or am I just misremembering? I'm old. I'm old. I've seen a lot of things. I don't know. Let's see. So, T-shirt it is said he's transitioning to a new channel. So, that's exciting. So, I'm just cleaning up a boo-boo here. I need to get better lighting, better cameras. I've got to get a lot of better things going on here. But as I was in shadow there, hopefully that'll make things better. Whiskers. Let's see, there were a few video games, but the series was a manga back in the early 80s. Big manly dudes with muscles doing martial arts and stuff. Was awesome. Ah, okay. I sort of remember some of that, but I don't know. I'm not a big manga anime kind of guy. I mean, I liked Robotech. Well, I mean, I like Battletech too, but Robotech and Macross, Southern Cross, all that. Of course, I don't think we ever got the real deal on that stuff. I think we just kind of got whatever Harmony Gold slapped together. Then, of course, there was Battle for the Planets. But even that, I was doing some research. I did a little deep dive on Battle of the Planets. And it was also a big butcher job that American distributors did with the original see that strap comes up, it comes to the shoulder, and it just stops right there. It doesn't continue on. There's no line here that says where that's supposed to go. And that's infuriating. It's like, why would you have a strap and stop that strap right there when you know it's got to wrap around? This one wraps around, sort of. It kind of stops right here at this shoulder. It goes past his hair. It doesn't really do anything. There's no line right there. It just stops. It is infuriating. I guess infuriating is better than outfuriating. Let's see. It was 3 entirely different animes all slapped together in Battle of the Planets with Science Ninja Team. Gachimon. Right. Way back when I was a kid in the 70s. Star Blazer was Yamato. Yeah, I remember all of those, and I remember Star Blazers. You know, that stuff came on. And then there was Johnny Sacco. Johnny Sacco was on. It was on just after school let out on, I believe it was WTBS when at the time. Giant robots from space, I think, is what they actually named it for the American audience. Gold R. Yeah, I remember that one too. I mean, there was a lot of really great stuff coming in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. But nobody knew what to do with it, and nobody knew how best. See, here's another problem. So you've got the drum, you've got the strap for the drum, and you got a strap for his possibles bag, and they should be crossing over here, and there should just be a whole lot of strappage going on there, but there isn't. Again, when it comes to some of these older historical sculpts, and I do assume that they're older historical sculpts, they tend to, they really do tend to just have a good enough aspect to the quality of them. It's something to get used to, and I hope I don't sound really overly critical about it, because I'm not really being overly critical, other than just making note that this is what to expect. If you all do buy into any Blue Moon 15mm figures, just know that it's going to be a mixed bag as far as the quality of sculpts go. I have seen some really nice Blue Moon figures, but also, you know, the idea of actually painting detail on is something that has kind of been in the historical miniatures side of the hobby for a long time. If the sculptor didn't put it on, you just have to paint it on. I think that is a little bit of a that's a little bit, I hate to say I don't want to use the word anti-consumerist. That's not right. That's not the right word. But it's a little low quality. It just feels like it's a little bit of a, it's disrespectful. That's the word I'm looking for. It's disrespectful to the consumer, I think. Let's see. Johnny Sacco with Tetsujin 28 in Japan was a lot darker too. All those shows were way darker in Japan, no doubt. They kind of made it a lot lighter for kids in the U.S. Yeah. Well, it's just like, Power Rangers was on USA Up All Night long time before it was on, afternoon, kids' afternoon TV. Kamen Rider. Power Rangers, which I remember seeing that stuff a lot when I was like 15, 16, and it was on Up All Night on USA. A lot of the old Kung Fu movies as well. Saturday afternoon. I think WGN used to have Saturday afternoon Kung Fu movies, if I remember correctly. But yeah, there was a lot of those Japanese shows did have darker themes in the original. Especially like Gotcha Man, Science Ninja Team. they really did a epic amount of editing to make it palatable for American kids. For good or for bad, I mean, depending on which way you look at it, I guess, but this brush keeps doing silly things. Get a little brush soap on this brush and clean her out. It's getting some paint up in the ferrule because it's a very small paintbrush. Like I usually say, small paintbrushes for small things, not so much. Let's see, make sure that we're not missing out on some other stuff. Oh. Huh. You know what's really weird? Yeah, Cyrus right, Ultraman. Yep. Sorry, Patty. You know what's really weird is I've got Social Stream Ninja up. Yeah, so now Rumble's coming through. Patty says he's going to be painting some K-47 minis for a bit. So Conflict 47, regular time will be in about 4 hours. Generally reach out to, let's see, blah blah blah. So, all right. So all the Rumble chat just now came in. So let's see. Cyrus is going to be on in the parlor tonight over on Rumble. So I don't know what he's talking about. So that's going to be, 11 o'clock? 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Patty's Parlor on Rumble. Let's see. Yeah, so these are some really, really janky sculpts. Hard to see what's going on with them. But we will soldier on. Soldier on with these sculpts. But we're getting ready to do a, in July, my club is going to be doing a Battle of Saratoga. Now, some people look at the Battle of Saratoga and they say, well, there's first Battle of Saratoga and there's second Battle of Saratoga. I disagree. I think that Saratoga was a battle in two parts, not two separate battles. But it was the battle that basically showed the European powers, like France in particular, and I believe France and even the Dutch were a little skeptical of what the Americans, the colonists, could do. So it was the one that really got everybody paying attention to the Americans and said, well, they really have a going concern there. But I digress. I somewhat disagree that it was two battles. It was really one battle separated by about 2 weeks. There was the Freeman's Farm portion. Tonight it was the Freeman's Farm portion of the Battle of Saratoga. And I think we need to look at it not as two separate battles, but really as one battle that was started and then it continued. And there was some of that was logistics and personalities and expectations, as you have in most conflicts. So I'm just checking over here to see if T-Shirt Historian corrects me, because He's more of a historian than I am. It's in his name. So, but it's kind of cool that finally the Rumble chat finally came through, so I could see Patty and Cyrus over there talking, scheming and plotting and scheming. Let's see. Let's see. Cyrus says, I would need a magnifier to do this. Patty says, I believe we want to get to know about the man who was born to let it roll. Yes, let it roll with Cyrus. So all these guys have period accurate hair. That's sculpted. I don't know why everything else couldn't be sculpted. But you'll get that on these big jobs, I guess. I do use a magnifier from time to time, Cyrus, actually. FYI. ICMY. Right now I've got my glasses off because as you get older, you get this thing called presbyopia. And it's easier to see up close with your eyes with your eyes in their natural state. And even then I don't see everything because, well, see, look. So this strap goes here. And then somehow it jumps way over here and goes across his neck. It is insanely frustrating to see that happen. The more I paint on these, the more weird little flaws like that show up. And it's not a dig against the sculptors. It's what was accepted, I think, in historical wargaming was, I don't want to say mediocre sculpts. That's not right. That's not nice. But I think you might call them, again, they're just kind of, I don't want to say the bare minimum, but they're challenging. Again, they're considerably challenging. And then of course I'll go back and clean up where I got out of lines, because the lines show up after you paint them and you see what you missed or where you got out of line. So, I'm like, there's this blob right here beside the canteen. Is it part of the canteen or is it part of his possibles bag? I don't know. His ditty sack. It's hard to say. But I am not using a magnifier right now because sometimes it gets in the way. So I found that I could see pretty well for doing this if I just took my glasses off there, Cyrus. Let's see. So it won't be this Saturday. It will be next Saturday that I stream on Saturdays. So I stream on every Thursday and every other Saturday. You could say that I'm the anti-uncle. If you know, you know. So, $7.35. So, Pat, I had to do some interesting grounding at work today. To make it work, because I couldn't get into this person's house to disconnect the neutral from the ground in the panel. I put a new meter-based disconnect on this place because code says you gotta put a new meter-based disconnect on anytime you do any service work. So, I mean, obviously, if it already has a meter-based disconnect, it doesn't require putting a new one on then. But if it doesn't have a meter-based disconnect, the code requires that you put one on. And so I put a new meter-based disconnect on, got rid of the old meter base, put a new 2-inch rigid mast up the side of the house, put wire in that. But because I couldn't get into the house to separate the neutral from the ground, so the ground was coming out and it was going to a ground rod, and we assumed it was going to 2 ground rods. It was going down the side of the basement. Couldn't really do much with it. So what I did, because there's a piece of SE, so the meter-based disconnect was here. There's a piece of SE cable going out here, going into the house, and down to the panel, right, in the basement. Well, SE only has 2 hots in the neutral, or the neutral coming back to here generally, right? So I was still using that as the neutral. So I had to take a ground wire out of the meter-based disconnect, because this is the first means of disconnection right here, which is where you bond everything together. So then I just went down here, put 2 new ground pins, put those in. Then I just popped a little piece of number 4 wire and tied back over here to that old ground wire, so that I wouldn't have just this neutral going back between the panel and the meter-based disconnect. So now it's got an actual ground between the basement panel and the meter-based disconnect. So, anyhow, that probably didn't make any sense to anybody except for Pat. So, and it's not the way everything should be ever done like that, and that's not the way I would normally do something like that. Normally, I would run a new ground wire down right straight to the panel. But, like I said, we couldn't get to it. So we just kind of had to do what we could. Wasn't exactly right, but it's a lot more right by doing it that way than if I didn't do it at all. So, all right. Alright, so here we go. Cross belts on the front. Cross belts that don't match up with the cross belt on the back. Gives me the anxieties. YouTube's wrong, Cyrus Wright. You're supposed to have two ground wires, two ground pins anyhow. An extra ground isn't going to do a thing for you. It's just a path for bad leakage. It's not even really. It's not even really. It's more of a safety thing than you should never have voltage on your ground ever. It's basically a safety path for errant voltage to go down, to leave. You got to watch what you watch on YouTube. They'll tell you anything. The only real way to get your utility bill down is to not use utilities or find alternate power sources. Wind, solar, nuclear. I mean, if you can figure out how to develop a nuclear reactor for your backyard, that'd be the way to go. You could probably power your house for the next 35 years off of it'd probably be longer than that, really, off of a piece of uranium the size of a lemon. 35, probably 50 years, really. Man in the high tower, he says. I started watching that a little bit. I think I saw the first couple of episodes were actually just on YouTube originally. But I did not keep up with it. I think if anything I'd rather read the book than watch the TV show. As with all things, the book's better. Alright, so is that everything with the cross belting? Okay, so these guys, check the backs. Check the fronts. Good. Let's look at the other groups here. Cross belting in the front. See this right here? That's where the line shows that the cross belt should be, and then it doesn't show up over here behind the turn back. Frustrating. Absolutely frustrating. Alright, that's all. Those are all done. I'm saving the general for last in case you saw the guy on the horse doesn't have any paint on him yet. Cross belting all done in the front there. Oh, that one. Sergeant needs a little cross belt action over here. Again, we're just painting that detail in. There's not even a sculpt line on that. Irritating. The backs are all done, looks like, mostly. Got to do the canteen yet on some of these, on all of these actually. Cartridge box is done. Belting is done. Possible bag is done. I'm going to pull some of that out. Cross belting on the back is done, except for the guys in the hunting shirts, and I think I'll worry about that after I get a wash on those hunting shirts to bring the texture out in them. Yeah, I think I'll just do that there. Majority of the uniforms are done here. Looks like got to do the hat. There's a little plume and a crest on the hat, and the sergeants have sashes. So a bit to do there. I'm going to go ahead and work on these musicians real quick. And we're going to get some blue. I don't care what blue I use. I think I'll just use Prussian blue. Watch your ears. Noise. So on the musicians uniforms were reverse colors of the regiment there usually. So now maybe it was different in the Revolutionary War. I don't know, but my familiarity says that that's what it was, and so that's what we're going to go with. Of course, uniforms in the Revolutionary War were all over the place. The British were the only ones that had anything even remotely resembling standards. There was the 1720 warrant, and then I think the 1760 something warrant that were the were the equivalent. Of the uniform regs. America basically made a bunch of Captain Americas and hired Nikola Tesla to develop arc-wave weaponry. General Gray. Yeah, the General Gray. The Soviets, Japan, and Brits are all still fighting as well. The Brits lend-leasing American Rift Tech and making an automaton army. The Soviets spying and stealing. And Japan developing stealth suits. Aha. Let's see. Yeah. So, Social Stream Ninja seems to just be dumping out chat as it wants to. So if I'm missing anybody's chats, I apologize. And pardon my sneezy there as well. I'll have to go back and touch up because I'm getting some of that on his hands there, which is understandable because I painted hands before I painted everything else. Just needed a place to start, you know. And generally hands and faces are a good place to start, but on these little dudes, they're just all kind of all over the place, you know. Thank you, Patty. Fun D6 game with some activation variations. Models are really cool. It's got a lot of crunch to it, which is a bit different than I usually like, but the rules make sense in context. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people are liking Conflict 47, it seems. A lot of people like it. It's got the dice in a bag mechanic. A lot of people enjoy that rather than having to wait. I go, you go. You get to do all the things to me and I can't do anything back to you. mechanic of the workshop games, you know, which is old style game design, you know. You don't need to do that anymore. I guess I'll have to do a little bit of internet search and see what color the canteens are supposed to be. That's the one thing about researching old uniforms, is that it's always a challenge to find out who was wearing what, when, and where. And I could actually not find anything about this uniform or this unit. So I think, as with many things in historical miniatures gaming, it was made up. Don't tell the historical the uber serious historical miniatures gamers that a lot of their units are made up and never actually existed. But at least the miniatures often portray things that never existed. But don't tell them that. Maybe I'll wait to clean things up and I'll just see what a wash does to it all, you know. And anything that's left out, anything that the wash leaves out, we'll clean up then. All right. Just figure it's one of the easiest parts to clean up here is the cartridge case. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Just to have something to do, just to get that done and clean up right there. See, like right there was a little bit of the cuff showing, and now I've got a little bit of the black on the cuff, but that's okay. That's so small it's not even going to be noticed. And the wash is going to really separate a lot of the things there. So let's see, where was it here? This sergeant is missing some yellow on his cuff. I'm going to go ahead and fix that right now because I'm thinking of it. What they say, if something takes 5 minutes or less, do it now. Do it immediately. So we're just going to go ahead and fix this guy's cuff immediately. Now while we're on this stick here, let's go ahead and get these guys, give these guys some turnbacks. There and right there. It's just peeking out just underneath his drummer hand here. Taylor Hawkins, 1776. Wait, no. Neil Peart, 1776. We got drummer Hawkins and drummer Peart over here. Here I am cracking wise, and I just got blue on his blue where there doesn't need to be any blue. Let's take a little bit of this white and we'll do it right there. Fix that. I guess we could paint their drums in blue. Paint the drum bodies in blue. Let's go ahead and do that. And it's okay if we get color on other parts of the drum. We'll be going back over those. Here eventually. Clean that up. You can always add a little bit more, take a little more time with the command figures, since there's not that many of them. So the drummers, flag bearers, the general, etc., so on, so forth. Just, you know, there's stuff. I'm going right over some of this stuff, and it'll just get a quick. I'll use the edge of my brush, not really a dry brush by any means, more maybe just like the edge of my brush to hit those tensioning chords. So we'll do that. We'll set those dudes aside for a minute. Grab these other musicians. And because I don't know what regiment these guys are going to go to, these are just sort of some extra dudes that got handed to me to paint up. Let's just go with red. It's going to go with Procryl Pyro Red. And it's thin enough with a couple of drops of water. Get right in there. Still see some of the gray peeking through. It's kind of informing the red a little bit. But that's okay. 2 thin coats is the recommended dosage. So I don't know if YouTube is still sending me messages. So if I missed anybody's message over there, Social Stream Ninja, you need to just start bringing things in as they roll, please. Silly app you are. Not app, it's actually an extension. It does pretty good for the most part, but it likes to build them up and then dump them all at me at the same time. So let's see what's going on. I may just bring up. Let's see. Oops. Let's just bring that up. Let's see if. Let's see. Yes, I have been missing all of yours. Sorry, T-shirted. Oh, so now it comes up. So now yours comes up. So it's giving me Benedict Arnold. So everything basically was where the story. Man, yeah, I missed a whole lot of yours, T-shirt. I apologize. Without Saratoga, there's very rarely possibility the revolution collapses. Yep, absolutely. Burgoyne's force was formidable, but the American wilderness destroyed momentum. Yep, roads barely existed, bridges had to be built, trees were felled across routes, supplies vanished. Yep, absolutely. American militia and riflemen constantly harassed them. Then came one of the campaign's first legendary moments. Jane McCrea was a young loyalist woman killed under murky circumstances. The incident, oh, that's interesting. I did not know about this. The incident exploded across the colonies. Patriot propagandists used it relentlessly. The British are unleashing savagery on civilians. Whether the story was exaggerated or not almost didn't matter. No, even if it was exaggerated or not, it was still true, right? A militia enrollment surged. Farmers grabbed muskets. Suddenly Burgoyne was marching deeper into hostile territory with enemies multiplying around him. Benedict Arnold, later remembered almost entirely as America's greatest traitor, may have been the single most aggressive and effective American battlefield commander at Saratoga. Yes, not just at Saratoga, though. He had a lot of... He really was... He was very effective, both logistically and strategically, and he just kept getting passed over, and maybe it could have been his attitude. It could have exactly why he was passed over. I don't think we actually have a clue. Whether it was attitude, I don't know. Maybe his breath stank. Maybe he didn't comb his hair. Maybe he didn't change his socks. Who knows? It could have been connections. Maybe he wasn't connected to the right people, and then when he did get connected up with a loyalist family, his hearts and mind his hearts and mind was won over. Let's see. Benedict Arnold. Yes, battlefield commander at Saratoga. One of the great heroes of Saratoga was Daniel Morgan. Morgan commanded frontier riflemen armed with long rifles instead of smoothbore muskets. Americans were deliberately targeting officers. Yes. There are accounts of British officers becoming priority targets the moment they appeared on horseback. Well, that's just not cricket, old bean. Targeting officers is so uncivilized. Oh, goodness. Let's see. Becoming priority. Hoping we crack Cold Fusion. Hey, JP, you know where we got the name sharpshooters from? No, I don't know where we got the name sharpshooters from. So, I think I'm caught up to you there, T-shirt. It's just one of those weird things with Social Stream, I think. It's like it comes in blocks. Alright, Cyrus, thanks for stopping in. Appreciate you. Yeah, so anyhow. Yeah, this is really weird. I mean, Social Stream Ninja, I finally got it working. But it is... it's just... but yeah, I'm caught up to you, T-shirt. So please enlighten the audience. Where did the term sharpshooter come from? I mean, once you say, I'll probably say like, oh yes, of course I knew that, but I've forgotten. I'm old and I forget things easily. That's why I write things down nowadays. Too much falling on my head. Let's see, I don't want to use red. I want to use blue. Use blue on this next one. Or yellow. Maybe I'll go with yellow. Yeah, let's do yellow. Before I do the yellow, I think I'm going to do a little bit of ochre as a base for the yellow, because yellow, even the Pro Acryl, yellow is really good stuff and I love it. But even it needs a little bit of help. So, let's see. I like to usually put a little bit of an ochre down. This is Vallejo's Flames of War Green Ochre. And it is Vallejo 914 Green Ochre. I like to lay that down before I lay down yellows. It makes a nice base for the yellows. Let's see. Sharpshooters comes from the Old West. The Sharps rifle, usually chambered in 50 cal, was the best long-range rifle we had at the time at the Battle of Adobe Walls, right here in Texas. It was Billy Dixon. Billy Dixon, okay. In June 1874, a small group of buffalo hunters and traders at Adobe Walls in the Texas Panhandle were besieged by hundreds of Comanche, Kiowa, and Cheyenne warriors, led in part by Cunna Parker. Okay. Sharps shooters. They were shooting sharps. So they were using Sharps rifles, therefore they were sharp shooters. And what are you saying? Are you saying that superior firepower and superior marksmanship won the day? If it didn't win the day, it saved their lives, right? And the medicine man Istai. On the third day of the siege, a group of mounted warriors gathered on a distant ridge nearly a mile away. Dixon borrowed a 50 caliber Sharps Big 50 buffalo rifle and fired at the group. One warrior was knocked down from his horse at an estimated distance of about 1,500 yards, an almost absurd shot for the black powder era. Yes, very much. He would have been completely obscured by the front post of the rifle, probably. Probably had to lob that thing too. That was some Kentucky windage going on right there, and elevation. It's like when my dad and granddad were deer hunting in Colorado. My dad saw a deer going through the valley, or going through sort of a open area. It wasn't the valley, it was sort of like a, I don't know, it was a flat open spot between two little hillocks, as you have out there in the southwestern corner of Colorado. And my dad looked at it, and I think it was too far for him to shoot, but he could see it. He could glass it. And then he saw the deer fall over, and then he heard the crack of my granddad's rifle. So the deer went, and he heard bang about 3 seconds later. So, I mean, when you can hit a dude at 1,500 yards, that's got to cause you guys some concern. Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. Here's what will make your jaw drop. Dixon was shooting at a moving target, and the ball traveled several seconds before it hit. Yep. Yep, at 1,500 yards. 1,500 yards is what? 15 times 3, that's 45. That's nearly, a mile is 5,280 feet. So that's over 3/4 of a mile. 4,500 feet. 45. Yeah, so 4,500 feet. So 3/4 of a mile. Black powder. He's got to lob it. And, you know, at that distance, the front post is probably the same size as the guy. So he had to lead that target. So his front post was basically... So here's the guy. Let's say that's the guy. His front post was doing this to that guy. He couldn't see him, so he had to actually lead him out here. And so this guy is going along, and he has to fire like out here, bang, for this guy to walk into it. And it takes 3 seconds to get there. So 3 seconds, that's 1,500, so 15, so 1,000 feet. Yeah, so that's 4,500 feet. Averages 1,000 feet per second. So he was doing probably 1,250 feet per second out of that with whatever load he was firing. So yeah, without modern optics and a black powder rifle. No, I know it gets crazy the more you think about the physics. Yeah, it does, for sure. Absolutely. It definitely boggles the mind. Well, I mean, that's just, I mean, think about a guy like that. And then there was, in this area where I live, was a gentleman by the name of Simon Kenton, who also went by the name of Louis Wenzel. And he was a big man, over 6 feet, in a time when average height was 5'9". Like, it was more average height now then than it is now. But Simon Kenton could actually run, full run, and load his musket rifle. And rifles, I don't know, T-shirt, if you've ever tried to load a rifle or not, but it takes a little more oomph to load a rifle than it does a musket. Muskets were generally smoothbore, unless they were rifle muskets, which rifle muskets really didn't become a big thing until the mid-1800s, shortly after the Napoleonic era, which is why shooting in the Civil War was so much more devastating. The infantry rifleman was much more devastating at that point than it had ever been before in history, because the Springfields all had just a little bit of rifling. Two lands, I think, 2 rifling lands, maybe it was 4. But they weren't very deep, but they were just enough to impart spin to the ball round. They weren't quite a rifle. They didn't have the deep cut groove of the rifle, but they did have rifling. And so they were more accurate. But no, Louis Wenzel, a.k.a. Simon Kenton, could run at full speed and load his weapon. Not an easy task. But rifles are harder to load because you've got to put pressure on the round to get it down into the grooves, into the lands, the rifling, as opposed to just dropping it down and pushing it home. Let's see. So yeah, that's where you get the sharpshooters from. Sharps shooters. Good story. I've never used a black powder rifle myself. Everything I've shot is cartridge based, but I have seen more than one guy loading cap and ball and muzzle loaders. Yeah. I've shot a little bit of everything. Where I grew up in Kentucky, we had a pioneer weapons area. So black powder and crossbows and longbows were actually pretty popular for guys that would go out and extend their hunting season with the primitive weapons. Not that you couldn't use them any other place, but like you could go into the primitive weapons area and during modern gun season and not have to worry about modern gun people messing you up. I don't mean messing you up like shooting you. I mean like just it was quieter. It was quieter. There was less pressure during those times because everybody had switched over to modern weaponry, and so the primitive areas were being less hunted at the time, or it seemed that way. But they'd stay open a little bit longer too throughout the year. I think they would go until February. So deer season usually started end of September. And you'd get archery. Archery went in first. Then there was black powder muzzle loading. And then modern usually came in around November, right at the end of the rut. And then sometimes I think there was a couple of times where there was a secondary modern season as well, maybe late December. But after modern gun, it went back to black powder and archery. And then February was primitive weapons. There were some people that would go hunting with spears. They'd try an atlatl. So that was a thing. I never did. Let's see. The mini ball changed the Civil War shooting. It made ordinary infantry vastly deadlier before military tactics evolved to handle that increased lethality. Yes, because for one thing, you didn't have a round ball. It was it had that torpedo shape. And it was designed to expand with the gases. The back of the mini ball or the mini round expanded with the gases and got locked into those sides of the barrel. Muskets were inaccurate and a relatively short range. Yep, handled bows, crossbows never fired. Let's see, blah blah blah. Increased lethality. Rifled musket firing mini ammunition could reliably hit target several hundred yards away, penetrate deeply, and retain muzzle energy over long distances. Yes, and they were 68 caliber. 68 caliber. How big is 68 caliber, kids? Let's show. This square is 1 inch. Half of that inch. This is the diameter of a 50 caliber weapon. A half inch, 0.50. This is 3/4. This would be a .75 caliber weapon, which is canonically what a Space Marine bolter fires is, a .75 caliber round, which is very close to a 12 gauge slug. A 68 caliber round is right in this area, right between those, which is about the size of the tip of my thumb. So that round, that Minet ball that T-shirt Historian is talking about, is about that size. In fact, you can still load your black powder rifles with them. They still make Minet balls, so you can still use them. They still exist, and they're about that big, about the size of the end of my thumb. And I've seen what they do to deer. They put a nice size hole in them. They are definitely they have some real destructive power. Let's see. Suddenly, infantry could kill each other at range previously associated with specialized marksmen. Yes. Melee balls cause absolutely catastrophic wounds. Absolutely. Contrary to Hollywood myths, surgeons didn't amputate because they were incompetent barbarians. Often the limb was simply destroyed. Yes. Well, when you shatter the bone, you shred the ligaments, and you completely obliterate the muscle there. The muscle is just exploded. I mean, it's pulp. If you hit a deer with a 50 or 68 caliber minié ball, because you can still use them in hunting in black powder, they absolutely pulp whatever they hit. It's just a mass, just this bloody mass that the wound doesn't even really bleed. It just kind of gets plugged up with this just bloody mass of pulverized meat. So yeah, that's exactly why they had to do so many amputations, was because there was nothing left. They couldn't save it. There was no way to do anything with it. And I would gainsay that anything that is, I would say that even a modern trauma center could probably not do anything better than amputate it. I mean, I know that military surgeons have seen a lot of stuff, and battlefield medicine has gotten a lot better over the years. But I would almost bet you that if that kind of damage was on a limb, even now it would be almost nearly impossible to rescue. So yeah, they're absolutely devastating. That's a big chunk of metal. Huge chunk of metal. They weigh almost an ounce. So a melon ball, which is a slug from a 12 gauge, which a 12 gauge slug is about .75 caliber, is about a 1 ounce slug. So a mini ball would be slightly smaller than that, not quite an ounce, but close enough. That's a big chunk, and I've already demonstrated how big around that mini ball is. That mini ball is, literally about the diameter, a little bit smaller than the diameter of my thumb, but about the size around of my thumbnail. So, mini ball hitting bone could splinter it into fragments. Yep, drive debris through muscle, create massive infection risks, and this was all before antibiotics. Amputation saved lives back then. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. But also, the other thing about that is when you consider there were some surgeons that found that they liked to boil their equipment and got it cleaned. So there were some that just boiled their equipment. It made it cleaner. It made it easier to take care of. In fact, there was a couple of surgeons in the Royal Navy in the 1700s, late 1700s, early 1800s, that were noted for boiling their equipment. And they just did it out of doing it, because germ theory had not been, I hate to say not been discovered yet, but it wasn't discovered yet. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. So, but there was a ship where they started figuring, they were like, hey, how come your guys are all surviving a lot better? And the guy's like, well, they're surviving surgery a lot better. Well, I mean, one thing I do is I boil my equipment. And clean it off real good. They're like, huh. Very interesting. Although I don't think it became a standing order to do that after that. But I think it gave several surgeons something to think about. Let's see. All right. We'll put some oak brown on these guys, on these. These are almost like telephone poles, the size of these things, but that's a production thing. That happens. That's how they have to do it to be able to produce these. I just think it's funny. In real life, that's like tying a flag to a 2x4. The mini ball sits at a strange crossroads in history. It belongs to old black powder warfare, but foreshadows industrialized killing. It helped make mass frontal infantry assault suicidal. Yes. And that's one of the things that people don't realize either, is that the Civil War was right in that period. Industrialization was what really, by all accounts, the North was behind as far as tactical victories and things happening and the like. They were going through generals like you go through peanut butter, you know. So the South actually had better leadership as far as battlefield goes, or at least it seems that way. There's a lot of back and forth on that. But in general, and just as a generalization, I know we shouldn't generalize when we're talking about things in an academic setting, but we're going to generalize and say that the South, generally speaking, at the beginning of the war, had better leadership. But the one thing that the North had was, first they had a lot of conscription. They also had industrialization, so they weren't reliant on imports. The South had a surprising amount of imports for their in their logistics chain. Especially after, what was that, Antietam? Second Battle of Antietam? I don't remember right offhand. Of course, Lee happened to lose his... he lost a package of cigars, and there was a letter, a general order in there, that basically outlined all their moves. So Meade was able to exploit that, but not as much as he probably could have. But on with the idea of industrialization, up until then, really, trench warfare hadn't been a thing. In fact, a lot of military leaders hated the idea of entrenching their men. They thought that it would lead to cowardice, and it would make the men not confident in their skills. So they refused to fortify positions. Well, there was this little 3-day picnic in Pennsylvania, a little town called Gettysburg, and the battlefield, as it shook out, was in the shape of a upside-down fishhook, with the hooky part at the north end. And the north end was held down by a certain General Greene. Now, General Greene was an engineer by trade. He was an army engineer. And they kept taking his guys to reinforce other positions. And so he was on the very north end of Culp's Hill, all by himself, hanging out in the air. So he had his men build fortifications. And he was severely under strength. But he saw off 3, and this was even at nighttime attacks, 3 attacks on his position that had he not fortified his position with fallen logs, trees, a little bit of earth here and there, he would have severely lost that position, and the South would have rolled down from the north right along that Union line. Let's see, the South generals just had fought an easy war in the war, with Mexico. Well, and a lot of the Southern generals actually fought alongside the Northern generals in the Mexican War. So they all had a lot of the same experiences. But I think that there was a problem. There was a political problem with the North. I think there was a lot of, there was a lot of the right guy. Hey, this is my guy. I want you to use him, kind of thing. Instead of just the South needed to use what they had. The North was just playing jiggery pokery to get somebody out there. But let's see. The North had industrial might and more numbers, plus they kept all the fights in the South, yes. And it didn't help that Stonewall Jackson got shot by his own pickets. Yes, very true. That was sorely felt by Lee. And so there were three sort of, I don't know if I could say major things, but there were 3 contributing factors. There was the loss of the general order wrapped up with the cigars. There was a loss of Stonewall Jackson. And, because they were thinking that Lee had all these people. The thing that really hurt the North was their quote-unquote spy master, who was a Pinkerton. Pinkertons. Pinkertons messing things up in history. That never happens over and over again. Little, if you know, you know, right? So the spy master for the North was the head of the Pinkerton Detective Agency. And every time he got a report in, he always made it so that it was worse than it really was. And so instead of taking his spy's words for things, he would inflate the numbers, and it was really having an effect on the judgment calls of the generals there. So they were not as effective because they were getting bad information from someone who did not have military experience. He was a civilian in charge of the spies, when it really should have been probably a military officer, an actual intelligence officer, who had actual... I mean, I could see the Pinkerton guy being maybe an advisor or a second in command, but they really needed to have a military guy being the final say about that information. So that's something that also kind of hamstrung the North at the very beginning. And see, Meade also thought that Lee's army was one big army because part of it was getting that bad information. And it was only after getting that general order that just somehow miraculously showed up on a muddy trail that they figured out that Lee had split his forces into about 3 or 5 corps, about 40,000 men apiece, instead of being one big huge army of 150,000 dudes, or more. So that's why Lee had a lot of successes, because he was just running around all over the place with small, flexible corps. You know who else did that? Napoleon. Let's see. Don't forget that General Yosemite Sam was still stationed at the Mason-Dixon line until 1953. Ah, true. I tend to think the mini-ball was the final nail in the coffin. Southern generals still used frontal assaults and dense troop lines in Napoleonic formations. Yes, very true. I mean, a lot of that. I mean, it's all just... There is no one, and you know this, T-shirt, since you are a historian. History is not cut and dried. There is no, look at this is the reason why, this is the reason why. Well, they're all the reason why. They're all the reason why. Usually there is no silver bullet, no simple, easy answer as to why things shook out the way they shook out. It's just a matter of... It's kind of like compounding interest, One thing builds on another and another and another. It's the compounding interest of history. I guess you could say. Let's see. Except now the North had rifled muskets. Yep. The rifled muskets was huge leap in technology. Kill attackers hundreds of yards away. That's why the casualty rates in the later battles skyrocketed. Yep. Very true. We were talking about the rifled muskets a little earlier too. So, but yeah, that flew a lot straighter, so you could pick your target and it would likely hit your, probably 80% chance of hitting your target, at least. A lot more stable flight. They weren't flying off to the left, right, and down and up. Also, fused artillery rounds. That was a thing. Shrapnel rounds. So battles are won on a series of things, not just one thing or another, unless you're Hannibal Barca and an absolute genius at warfare. Right? Oh man, the chain shot were just brutal. Yes. 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 Well, there was chain shot and canister shot and bar shot and, like, of course, now bar and chain are usually more on sailing ships for taking down rigging. Very specific use for that. But they had a lot of canister shot in the Civil War. And you can see there's a chunk of a tree that has lots of canister shot. And the canister shot, the diameter of the outside diameter of the smallest ones looked to me to be about 1.25 inches. The larger ones was about 2 inches. Almost 2 inches, so that big around. You know, and they'd fire off a load of that. They go whizzing through the air. There was a general who was riding up in Gettysburg, and they don't know what happened to him. What happened to him is he got caught in a crossfire between canister shot. Basically vaporized him. So they never found his body. They probably found little pieces of his uniform and his legs, maybe. Supposedly it didn't hurt his sword. Supposedly. But they basically didn't find any body connected to him. He just disappeared. Pretty grisly. Pretty grisly. Man's inhumanity to man knows no bounds. Quite an unfortunate thing, really, when you get right down to it. It's probably not the best thing, you know. It's quite pathetic, kind of sad, really. Here we are, we all have 2 ears, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth. And people find almost any reason they can to do each other in. Of course, that kind of minimizes what that war was about. And in the grand scheme of things, it seems like that war kind of had to take place in order to do the things that it did and have the long-term effects. Not that any war is particularly just. But that just kind of history bears the evidence, you know. And the evidence is that war was needed to prove several things. I mean, you could go on and on about federalism and the Constitution and states' rights, and where does states' rights end and federal law begin, and you know, of course, the thing is when you look at a lot of those secessionist statements, those were not, you know, their new constitutions, those states' new constitutions were all about preserving slavery. So they needed that knocked out of them post haste, you know. And at the time, it seemed like that was the only way to do it. Chain shot could mutilate people horribly. Absolutely. Spinning iron chain moving at cannon velocity through a crowded deck. God help whoever stood in the way. Yeah. Yep. Arms, legs, heads. I mean, the thing about chain shot, it was designed to shred rigging and shred, go through like yard arms and the like. Well, not really yard arms so much as really just shred rigging and cut ropes, cut ropes and rigging and shred sails. But I would say that there were no small amount of crewmen that got caught by it. Let's see. There are battlefield accounts describing crews essentially scythed apart by it. Yep. Yep. Very true. Sorry I didn't get right to that one t-shirt. I was waxing poetic, if you will. You say, I remember that when you come on my stream with your smart alecky little quips and puns and jokes. When you're in my chat, I'll just remember that, he says. Well, we'll see how late we go tonight. See how far we get with this stuff. All good, man. It's your show. Well, I just don't like it when I miss people's chats or the chat bot's not keeping up with things and I get everything chunked in all at once and people think I haven't noticed their thing. I can only go as fast as what is presented to me. So, but I am kind of proud of myself. I have gotten Social Stream Ninja to work consistently for the last 3 or 4 streams. So it's up now and it's working. It's just delivering things to me in a weird manner. And I don't particularly want to have to, I don't want to pay for like Streamlabs to go through all that. I try to keep things, I'm not making the big bucks off of this stuff by any means. So I can only do so much with what I have and what apps and things I can find for free. Free is good. I like free. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and paint these muskets in brown, and then we can always go back and take care of the metallic bits. I'm just keeping you entertained while you work, because on painting streams I end up not talking at all unless somebody's actively talking to me. Yeah, and I've had, the last few streams I've had really nobody show up much. So it's nice to have someone hanging out on stream right now. We had some nice participation earlier with Cyrus and Patty come in from Rumble over there. So it's nice to have some people checking out checking out the stream on the Rumble side. I multi-stream out. Because I don't see any reason to just stay on one platform when I'm allowed to be all over the place. So I'm on Twitch, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Rumble. Because, so Rumble is interesting. It has a user base of about 57 million, I think. Now, there are certain... It's kind of got a reputation for being more of a politichat, political sort of refuge sort of platform. But I see it as a place where there is a population that is not being served by good gaming content, tabletop gaming. So I figure if I get in there and cultivate an audience, that's an audience that nobody else is reaching. So that's good for me. YouTube is very crowded, and YouTube is not good at, it's not good at pushing things because it uses the same algorithm for promoting content. So if I'm not going, if people aren't watching and they're not liking and sharing, then the algorithm is just going to kind of let me sit and stew, and I'll kind of be going into the death spiral, so they say. Now, I don't know if that's any different on YouTube for live streams than it is for, say, produced content, but my VOD stuff is all over the place on the YouTube, and which the VOD is really why I use the YouTube, because I can't keep VODs on Twitch. They cycle out, I think at 2 weeks, 14 days, 7 days, 14 days, something like that. So that just cycles out, and if there's something really cool in there, nobody gets to see it, and there's no residual. There's nobody looking at it after the fact. But I get a lot of extra views. I mean, they're probably all bots on YouTube VODs, but then it's usually like 6 or 7 minutes is the average watch time on those. So, I don't know. I mean, yes, no, good, bad. What I really need to do is I really need to get cracking and get my produced videos produced. I've got a lot of footage in the can. I just don't have anything edited up. Editing and voiceover work and all that stuff. I really need to crack down on it and get that going, but it's very difficult when you live alone, and therefore, ergo, you have a lot of things you need to do in the evenings for yourself: laundry, dinner, other housework, mowing the lawn. I've got some repairs I need to do. All those things, all that sort of thing. Don't I know it? Live streams really never hit strong for me. I didn't start getting hits until I started pumping out videos, and suddenly people were interacting and being... Yeah, and the thing is I've thought about trying to figure out how to edit little bits and pieces out where I do something really cool, but I don't have the time to go back and watch my videos. But yeah, I've got lots of footage and lots of little interviews and things that I just need to sit down and do, but by the end of the day, I'm so pooped. You know, I got a lot of things to do personally that streaming is my content creation. You know? So, and I tell people, like, I run Paint and Takes t-shirt, and so what I do is I tell people to watch my stream so that they can ask questions about what I'm doing, or if they've got something they're trying to paint. I've usually got enough things in various states of progress that I can kind of pivot and show a technique or the like, or show an idea that might help them. Because there's a lot of how-to videos out there, but it's very difficult to catch somebody and say, "Hey, I'm having trouble with this," and have that personal touch, where it's like, "Oh, okay, so let me show you exactly how I do it," and then you're not stuck into a 10-minute video that's 9.5 minutes of filler with 30 seconds worth of actual information, because nobody ever does that. No, there is no Mrs. Got Rockets. No, it's just nothing quite ever worked out for me, man. In spite of my best efforts, It's just life, It used to get me down, but I just kind of got to a point where it was just, this is the way it is. So, it just is the way it is. So enjoy it. Enjoy it while you're still on this side of the grass, I get to go to conventions. I get to reach out and I can do more to help people. Speaking of helping people, I do have a fundraiser tab on my Twitch that is for the 988 Lifeline crisis helpline. We are about $100 away from the goal, so if you've got a Twitch and you want to help out there, a couple, $5, $2, $3, $4, $5, whatever, you're more than welcome to put a little bit in the kitty there. Do painting tutorials, push those out as video content first. Those will get more views than live streaming. Yeah, that's the thing, though, is there's a lot of painting tutorials out there. I think that I would kind of get lost in the fray there. But I mean, I thought about that, and I could actually use a lot of the footage that I have from my live streams. But downloading and editing out and figuring out how to do that from YouTube I just don't have the time to sit down and make that happen. But I've got a lot of stuff in the camera that I can use my onboard editing equipment, editing apps to edit from my multimedia machine, so to speak. So, but I mean, that's the thing, is that kind of content is I feel like it's hard to get good traction with. Seems like they're about a dime a dozen for tutorials. I got a couple of things. I got some 10-minute talk type things that I want to develop up a little bit more before I put them out there, and it's just one of those things. It's finding the time. It's also finding the energy. I could probably film, when I get home from work, but if I'm tired, it's going to come through on video, and the audience is going to sense that. And my high energy, enthusiastic. It's going to seem like I'm less enthusiastic than I want to be when I do a video like that, because I'm going to be tired and I'm be struggling with myself, and it might not come through in my words, but I know it will come through in my face. So, it's having enough energy and the like to record that stuff and get it out there. Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with single at all. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. Like I said, I kind of enjoy it. I got to a place where I just had to not be so overwhelmed with not wanting to be single. If that makes any sense. Because I would meet somebody and things wouldn't work, and I was always in this weird state of depression about it. And it just wasn't, usually it was the right person at the wrong time, if that makes sense. Right person, wrong time. Or wrong person, right time. I guess it's about as broad as it is wide. Hey Otto, how's it going, man? Good to see you. How you doing tonight? Not too shabby. Well, that's good. It's good to not be shabby. Speaking of shabby, I gotta get a haircut. Last haircut I got, the lady left the front too long, and it's getting down in my eyes, and I don't much care for it. I haven't had a skater shift for years. That's how long it's been since I've had skater hair. I used to have skater hair. Make a song out of it. He used to have skater hair. Dee 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 dee. Alright. Coming right along. Coming right along. These little dudes. It is 10 after 9. I usually go till 11. But I'm thinking I might dip out at 10. Sometimes less is more, you know. Otto says, I remember having hair. Well, you had to make an executive decision on that one. You could struggle with it, or you could just get rid of it as though it was never there in the first place. Yeah, it's just there's some equipment that I need to get to really dress this channel up, dress up my streams a little bit better, push out at a better resolution as well. Take the load off my computer so it won't have to process so much. So, I was over at your folks' place the other day, Otto. They fed me spaghetti. CGA, yeah. Still got to write a song about Mom's Van. Yes, we do. Yes, definitely. I wonder if we could bluegrass it up and play it at Carter Caves. I don't know. What's funny is punk rock. I hate to call it punk rock, but 4/4 timing, 3-chord rock and roll, which they only call punk rock because of Rolling Stone. The writer of Rolling Stone said, these people are making rock, they're making music that any old punk could make in their garage. So, hence it wound up getting called punk rock. Not that it was ever a style. It was more of a pejorative. Well, what these people are doing is not really that special. It's not that important. They're just making music that any punk could make in their garage. So, bro was telling me it was one problem outlet causing problems. Yes, it was. It was. I think we got it squared away. It was one of the quickest diagnostics I've ever done. I was afraid that we were going to have to trace everything down and go through multiple boxes and tear apart everything that's ever been done, I was afraid of that. But he goes, hey, I pulled out this and there was a spark. And I was like, there was a spark, like under load spark? He's like, no, it was sparked after I pulled the he said it sparked after he pulled the plug out of the outlet. And I said, that is very strange. So I put my sonic screwdriver to it, and that's what I call my non-contact tester. Because the first time your brother saw that thing, he goes, he was 10 years old, I think? And he goes, "What's that?" I said, "It's my sonic screwdriver." He says, "No, it's not." I'm like, "Billy, you have no." I said, "You have no." You have no imagination. For a 10-year-old kid, that's awful. He's like, "I don't care." That is one thing I love about your brother, man. He's very much his own person. Let's see. T-shirt says, "Funny thing about punk rock is it's almost the same thing with black metal. Guys who could barely play a lick recording in garages, they were trying to buck mainstream metal." Yes. Yeah. They wanted it heavier, louder, deeper. They did not like the corporate scene, the big hair. Yep, absolutely. Very true. Alright, got brown all over those. All over those. Auto laughs. Oh, you know what? I think I'm going to take a little break. I got to stand up. My knees sitting here for 3 hours. It's starting at 7. It is now, well, it's only 9, quarter after 9, 9:20. It's time for a little break. Grab some water. Pet the cat. Stretch. So I'm going to put out the bio break for a minute because I've been doing this for 2 hours. Usually if you work for 2 hours at work, you get to take a break. So we're going to take a break because we've been working for 2 hours. Reminds me of the half-hour death metal dungeon hour. Right? Alright. Here is the biohazard sign. Alright, we are going to take a little break. Alright, Otto. We'll talk at you later, man. Have a good evening. All right, and we are back. All right. Okay. Had to add a little more of this oak brown to the palette. So, couple more swigs of the water. I didn't know how out of water I was, how dehydrated I was getting. Okay, so back at it. We are painting the muskets here. T-shirt says he's still with me, still painting, posting pics on X as I finish. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Very cool. Well, thanks for sticking around. There's nobody keeping you here, but I'm glad you are hanging out and posting pics. I can't wait to see them. I've got about another hour to go here, I think. We'll see how far we get with this. If I get bored with painting these muskets, I'm going to cut it short. I can only do so much, and then it just is what it is. I find that I try to avoid getting burned out on things, because you can get burned out even on the things that you love, And if you push too hard and you're ready for a break, if you keep pushing, you can get to a point where you hate it. So we'll go until I don't feel like it anymore. That's the best I could say for it. So what have you been working on? I mean, I can look at your pictures eventually here, T-shirt, but what were you working on tonight? Or are you just going to tell me, well, you'll just have to find out when you look at my pictures? Because, I mean, that's okay. You can say that. I don't have a problem with it. You'll just have to look at my pictures. Working on some Infinity. Let's see. What have you been? You've done some. You kind of do a little bit of everything, don't you? You're not a one trick, one genre painter, are you? I think you tend to be as broad and wide in your interests as me. I think on a lot of things there. T-shirt. My Massive Darkness figures, left them unpainted forever. Yes, understand that. There are a lot of things that I have left unpainted forever. Yeah, Massive Darkness. I have not really had a chance to look into that. I only have so much bandwidth, I hear of things, but sometimes I never look into them, or I go, okay, well, that doesn't quite scratch my itch. Don't know. I know that I've seen Massive Darkness, and I know that I know it, but I just don't know. Like, I can't call it to mind right now. But I know that I know it, but I just don't know right now in my little pea brain. I can't quite place exactly what it is. I think isn't it kind of dark fantasy? I thought. All sorts of weird, gribbly monsters. I love Kingdom Death monster figures a lot, but I really want to knock out these Cool Mean or Not figures. Yeah, I've got a lot of Rum and Bones. and I want to paint the Roman bones up. I want to match the cartoon pictures on the character cards. But that's painting things one at a time, you know, and I'm much more I'm not really, I mean, I guess you could say I'm more of an army painter in my techniques. I go for edge highlighting and bold, lots of contrasty type stuff, whereas individual figure painting sometimes leans more into the art side of things. Art. Especially nowadays, you see a lot of really amazing things. The Monument Hobbies open competition at Adepticon was really, really great, because there were a lot of painters there that put their more artistic pieces in. So I much more enjoyed that than the Golden Demon competition, because workshop stuff has a particular aesthetic that people go for, whereas the Monument Hobbies Open show was it was really people doing their best, but also I believe they were having more fun, if that makes sense. Here's where I am. I watch pro painters do the same models and I can follow them, so I do non-metallic metal and blending and all that jazz, but a lot of that is time consuming and tiring. Yes it is. I can do all that, but I don't do it when I'm working at scale. So like these guys, obviously I won't do any of that. This is going to be blocking and washing and touching things up. But if I do, you know, like, okay, so here's a Hive Tyrant I've been working on for a while. So that's got a little more blending, like especially the hooves and such, and feathering, and more of that cuticle sort of a style, and glazed using on the fleshy bits that are kind of poking through the armor, the carapace there. I'm kind of using more of a glaze style, sort of like your speed paints there. So yeah, there's a lot of that. And then let's see, the speed paints, leaning on the speed paints heavily. Yeah, absolutely. There's some amazing work being done by speed paints, and you're already touching it on Don Serratos. Don Serratos, his work with speed paints is mind-blowing. Absolutely. And then, but what keeps me going is honestly buying new paints. New tools always help me get back into the groove. And there's more paints out there more now than ever. Yes, very true. Yep. Transparent layers. Yep. Wet blending. Yep. All of that stuff is great. And I find it works really good if you're doing a single figure, or, you know, maybe 3 or 4 figures in a group. But I've got such a backlog. I really want to get more units and more armies painted up. So I tend not to do that. But if I have a large figure like a dragon or something, I will wet blend the ever living out of dragon's wings. In fact, I gave the one dragon away, but it was said that people looked at it and they said, wow, it looks like the light is just shining through those dragon wings. Actually, I did that on 2 dragons, because the wings are such large pieces of real estate that could be really boring. But I think a wet blend is really the way to go on dragon's wings. I've seen some people even do like veins, like blood blood vessels on dragon's wings like you would see in on a bat wing. That's pretty neat. Now, from a technical standpoint, that's pretty neat, but I really like doing wet blends and get that gradient, that light to dark gradient where it looks like the light is shining through the wings, because it's a membrane, you know. Membrane, insane in the membrane. That was such a weird rap song. Insane in the brain, insane in the membrane. It was such a, that's a grade school rhyme right there, you know. But it worked. It worked, but it kind of irritated me because it was such a grade school level rhyme. Let's see. Not going to non-metallic metal a bunch of zombies or orcs or crap, sure, because that's just a waste of time, absolutely. I got stuff to get on the tabletop, true. So I save that for the heroes and big figures. Exactly. That's where I'm at. Exactly. I feel that. Still got my scale size Cthulhu to finish. Nice. Oh man, I saw one of those. There's a hobby shop down at Fort Knox, Elizabethtown actually, called Hard Knocks of all things, and they had one. They got that in, and back when that Kickstarter happened, they got that Cthulhu, and it is absolutely incredible. Somebody had it painted up. You know, they airbrushed it, and they did a really good job. You know, sometimes you wonder with airbrush, sometimes people just lean on the airbrush just to do all the work instead of actually using it as a tool. So, and I'm not talking about like the real high level professionals that really understand their airbrush work. It's kind of just us plebes out here in the nothingness, you know, that sometimes go, oh yeah, I got an airbrush, and their airbrush is just very rudimentary. But this was chef's kiss amazing. It was really, really well done, because you could tell they used airbrush, and they used there's just regular brush work on it, and they really did a really incredible job on this thing. But that Cthulhu is huge, and it's really well done. It wasn't cartoony. It wasn't, oh, this is the largest we can make, just because. It's like, so Reaper has a Cthulhu, but it's like 4 inches tall. It's kind of impressive, but not that impressive. It'd work really good with maybe like a 15 millimeter or maybe even 6 millimeter scale stuff. But as far as playing that against 28 millimeter figures, I don't know that I would play it against a 28 millimeter figure. It just looks too small. It's not that imposing. But that one from Cool Mini or Not, oh goodness, that was, I mean, you had to look twice to make sure that wasn't a toddler in a costume, you know. That thing was huge. Pretty amazing, you know. Let's see. Never used an airbrush. I'm honestly terrified of it. Same here. I haven't used an airbrush since high school, and I did not do very well with it. I have not used an airbrush since high school. I did not do well with it, and I'm not really too keen to try to go back to it. I would have to do a lot of infrastructure work here at my place to actually be able to run it. And summertime is coming on, so I'm going to probably go up to the upstairs desk where I have air conditioning, because it gets hot down here. So I would have to do a lot of messing around to to drag the airbrush all over the place, you know. But it's, I mean, like, for me, I think if anything, I would use it for priming when the weather's not good for priming. Let's see, I'm honestly terrified of it. Seems so fidgety, easy to mess up. Yep, and now they got compressors that are less than $100 and real good. Yes, yeah, they do, and they got some that are like not, you don't have to clean them. You put a little bottle in, so they're more for like undercoats, but they're not for doing like a lot of fancy work. But there's some that are out there that are kind of designed just for doing undercoating, which I think that's really where I would start. Personally, I would probably get one of those just to undercoat or to prime coat things, so that I'm not always waiting on the right weather, you know. Springtime, fall, nice day in summer. Because sometimes when the weather's nice, I don't get to... sometimes work keeps me late. And so if work keeps me late on some of those nicer days, not that work itself keeps me late, but the project might keep me late, you know. Got to get things done with the nice weather. If I'm digging a ditch and it's going to rain tomorrow, I'm going to keep on digging until it gets dark, you know. So, got to do the things you got to do when the weather's nice. So sometimes I would not be able to get back to my rattle can spray stuff to get a nice spray coat and undercoat, prime coat figures. So that could be a challenge, which is what an airbrush could help immensely with. Let's see. Missed out on Cool Mini or Knots Galactus. Yes. Yeah, I did too. But I am getting the Godzilla that is to scale with the Cthulhu, and I'm stoked for it. Oh, man, that's so cool. I didn't even know about the Godzilla. And I just installed a cabinet. So my house was built in the 50s. It's a smaller house. By smaller, I mean upstairs and downstairs combined are about 1,200 square feet, 1,300 square feet, which is fine, you know. It's the right size for me and my needs for the most part, but it didn't have a lot of cabinet space, not a lot of closet and cabinet space. So the other day I finally got a cabinet for like linens. Like I didn't have a linen closet, so I got a cabinet and put it in the anteroom just outside the bathroom as a linen closet. So I can put, you know, towels and, you know, overstock of toilet paper and sheets, bed sheets, and all that kind of thing. All the things you would put in a linen closet in there. Because I've got closets for clothes. I've got a hallway closet, which is good for jackets, but it doesn't have a lot of room for anything other than the things you're going to be wearing out. And then the bedrooms have clothes closets that are fine, but putting things in a convenient place like that, not a place. But anyhow, on top, above this cabinet, there's enough room between the top of the cabinet and the ceiling that a Godzilla that size. I was thinking about that. I was like, man, I wish there was a Godzilla that size that I could put up on top of that cabinet. So I'm gonna have to keep my eyes out for that thing. I think Galactus would be really cool too, but I'd love to have a Godzilla to put on display in that spot on top of that cabinet, looking down over the little passageway there. That would be fun. Gojira! And yes, it is correct to say Gojira. They're not making fun of people's accent by saying Gojira, because it is actually supposed to be Gojira. And for 13 bonus internet points, is there anybody out there that can tell me what Gojira means? Do 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 do. I'm betting T-shirt knows what Gojira means. Gojira means monkey lizard. If my memory is correct, probably isn't. The word is generally understood to be a combination of gorilla, gorilla, and Kujira, whale. The idea was meant to evoke something primal, enormous, and powerful. Yes. Yes. I knew T-shirt would come through for us. I was semi-correct. He was more specifically correct. T-shirt gets 13 internet numpties. Which is only slightly more valuable than a Marvel No Prize. But yeah, it's funny. But it's funny because when you hear, like in the Jurassic Park movie, was it Jurassic Park 2 or 3? It was one of the less good ones where the Japanese tourist sees the Tyrannosaurus Rex and goes, Gojira. Well, that's not his accent. That's actually his dialect. So his dialect is actually Gojira. So Gojira is correct. It's only Americans that say Godzilla. So if you say Gojira, you're not being insensitive or making fun of anybody. You're actually being more correct. Cool. Well, I've almost got everybody's stocks and stock. I've got everybody. Just this group here is the only one left to have their muskets painted up, or at least blocked in with brown. I've got more to do yet, but I think once these guys are done, we're gonna call it a night. Lol, don't even know if they still give those out. I really always want to know. Yeah, I don't think they give those out anymore, T-shirt, actually. I think that was, that was when Marvel was hip and cool and fun and on the cutting edge. Now they're so corporate. The mouse has really... I mean, there's no more soul in the comic book business anymore. Nobody's trying anything interesting or unique unless you go to the indies. So the indies are kind of doing that. But I feel like seems like comic books are sort of a dying thing, Manga has really replaced a lot of that. For whatever reason. I remember growing up and seeing, we were talking about some of those older anime series that came to the United States. I remember seeing little clips of anime and the like, and you could never find it, and now it's everywhere. And some of it is better quality than others, Or you had to really live in a cosmopolitan area and have a really well-appointed nerd store that could get that kind of thing and knew where to get it. Godzilla is the internationally accepted name. There's still some fans who always say Gojira regardless. And I have almost every Godzilla ever made. I just have holes from the Heisei era. Yeah. Awesome. Well, what I like is that Shout Factory has a channel right here on the YouTube. And I can just hit that and watch Godzilla movies. I'm definitely not as versed in the whole Godzilla lore as you, T-shirt, but man, I do love Godzilla. It was like Godzilla was the dinosaur movie that you always wanted, if that makes sense. It was what you thought dinosaurs should be like. And then, of course, I don't know if you remember this or not, but in the super late 70s, like 79, between 79 and 81, there was a cartoon, Godzilla cartoon, and that's where they had, it was like teenagers or kids living on a boat, and Godzilla was there, and They had Godzuki. There's Godzilla and Godzuki, and I couldn't tell you I couldn't tell you a single thing about any of the episodes. I remember watching it as a kid, and I remember it existing. I'm sure that I could find out more if I were to look it up. I'm sure somebody's done a YouTube video on it, or had their AI do a YouTube video on it. Man, I cannot stand AI videos. I can't stand them. Oh, I hate AI videos with a passion. I don't mean like somebody just edits their own footage with an AI, but I'm talking everything's AI. It's AI generated footage, AI generated animation, AI generated script, AI generated voice work. Oh my gosh, I have no love of that stuff at all. I wish YouTube had a way you could report it for low quality AI content, because there are a couple of channels that I watched where the AI was pretty good, and the script was you can tell that somebody had actually read the script over to make sure it was correct. So they were, somebody had actually taken the time to fact check it and make it correct. But oh my gosh, and the worst ones, and if you're like me, you probably love a good history channel. And so you're like, oh, this is cool. I haven't seen this history channel here on YouTube yet. So you click it on, and they've got some interesting looking take on their thumbnail about something that you knew about. Maybe they did some research, you think, and then you click on it, and it starts going, and it just gets worse and worse. It's like, you can tell that it's. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see, basically what Jurassic Park is trying to be these days. Grew up Godzilla cartoon with Godzuki, yep. Those were fun Saturdays. Fantastic Four with Herbie the robot, because they took out the torch, yep. Godzilla, Batman, Tarzan, Jason, Star Command, all that stuff. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, man. Jason, Star Command, and, Arc 2, yep. Batman and Tarzan's, Adventure Hour, and then they got then they put Zorro and they had Zorro and the Lone Ranger, and I think that was all the same studio that did that, because I'm pretty sure the same music was used. In a lot of cases, a lot of the same orchestral stings and the like were often utilized. Yeah, those were the days. I think that studios back then were more willing to take risks on things and to try things, and they didn't mind losing money if it didn't work out. Because what did they do? Well, they learned what didn't work, so they knew what would work next time. I mean, I'm sure they didn't like losing money, but I think they kind of had a little more adventurous spirit. Now everything is so tied into franchises that, you got franchises that are supposedly winning things. Well, we've already got a baked-in audience. So everybody wants to get in on these franchises, but they just think they can do whatever they want with them, and they kind of just mess up everything that they're trying to do, and aren't really good quality. They could be better quality. Let's say they could be better quality. So they just think that they're going to print money with a baked-in audience, but they still forget that it has to be good. They can't just rely on the name. People want good quality for their money. but they're sort of not getting good quality because nobody's really trying anything new and interesting. They're just trying to rehash what worked before. This worked before. We'll do more of that. They like that. Well, yes, but you can only reheat. You can only reheat chili so many times before it just dries out and it's no good anymore. You know, I like 3-4 day old chili, but after that, once the beans start losing their moisture after you've heated it up 5 times, you know. Now, granted, the spices and the meats and everything have seasoned really well, so it's a little bit better on that 3rd or 4th day, but anything past that is going to be the beans are going to be no good. That's not going to be fun. But, let's see. Hey, Miar, good to see you. 1996 FCC regulations gutted Saturday morning cartoons. Yes, they did. And it didn't help that the 80s basically treated Saturday morning cartoons as hours of advertising directly to kids for toys and things, but honestly, that was cool. Yeah. Hey, Horseshoe 4. Yeah, I do too, Miar. Hey, Horseshoe. So I'm working on Continental Light Infantry. These are 15mm figures from Old Glory Miniatures. Blue Moon, actually. So far, I've gotten their uniforms painted up. I was working on their gear this evening, so all their cross-belting and muskets, and I got this guy's drums. So I'm blocking things in right now, going to do washes, going to go back and pick out details. So these guys are for a game coming up in July. My club is putting on a Battle of Saratoga game. So we're looking forward to it. Everybody got the gentleman who is organizing the game basically bought everybody regiments to paint up. So we're all painting them up, and we're painting up the figures that he got. So nobody's doing all the work. We're kind of just breaking it up and doing it as a club. And then I think in late June or early July, before the game, we're going to get together and we're going to base everything up so that everything looks the same on similar basing. So, but that's pretty fun. So, what do I like about them? Where at? It's going to be West Virginia, where our club is at. I got ACW Iron Brigade. Nice. Very cool. Let's see. Where at? What do I like about them? Well, I like that they're 15mm and they paint up pretty quick. What I don't like about them is that the sculpting is a little dodgy in places. It's all hand sculpted. These are obviously greens, but some of the lines in the gear tends to disappear. Like you'll have a line like this crossbelt here. This crossbelt doesn't actually go across his shoulder. It's supposed to go across his shoulder, but there's actually no lines there where that crossbelt is supposed to be. But that crossbelt is actually back here, but that line goes over here, goes up to his shoulder, and just stops. So there are a lot of problems with these sculpts. That's what I don't like about them, but what I do like about them is they're just fun. They got good relief, so their detail is pretty crisp where it's crisp. Other places it tends to get a little blobby, but overall I've enjoyed painting them for the most part. Even though I complain a little bit, I am having a good time painting them. So, anyhow, how's it going, Miar? So, that is the Twitch side of people. They're in here visiting. So Miar was eating with his wife. That's good to know. I mean, it's good to have dinner with your missus. Miar has been subscribed now for 27 months. Very cool. Appreciate that, Miar. But yeah, the thing is too is that some of the Saturday morning trying to figure out what we will be doing this weekend. Yeah, 3-day weekend coming up. There's a lot of things to do. I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing some home improvement. That's what I'm going to be doing. So, I've got several little projects to do. Having a 3-day weekend is definitely going to help me get those done. Yeah, the ACW Iron Brigade Horseshoe 4. I've got those in the Warlord Epic scale for ACW. I just not ever gotten around to them. So I've got a pretty extensive, pretty good size Union Army for Warlord's Epic battles there. So. But yeah, some of the things that people talk about as being Saturday morning cartoons were actually, like, they weren't actually Saturday morning cartoons. They were actually they're actually syndicated cartoons, and they would be on either before school or after school. Like He-Man, a lot of people call He-Man a Saturday morning cartoon. Well, He-Man was never on Saturday mornings. Unless your syndication, unless your the company that syndicated it, you're the station that syndicated it put it on. But then it would have conflicted with the network shows. So the independents would put them on in the morning before school or in the evening after school. But yeah, the 1996 FCC, they cracked down on toys being tied into the cartoons. And that was really sad because I used to love watching Reboot. Reboot was good. Now that was a Saturday morning cartoon, and they did have a toy tie-in line. But there was also Transformers Beast Wars in the 90s. Here I am 20-something odd years old, and I was watching Transformers. Horseshoe says, yeah, still Saturday morning cartoons. Yep. Yep. So... let's see, Horseshoe says that wife scheduled an afternoon tea date, very different as he is an American and she is Canadian. So you play ACW too? Our club tends to be a little bit ADHD with their games. So yes, it's not my sole game, but yes, ACW. We have played ACW. So, oh, yeah, I might be younger. I might be. But I was in my 20s in the 90s. So, could be. I am 52. I'm 52, so, But, yeah, before, Saturdays when I didn't have to work, or early morning before leaving for work, or in the evening. Miar Aznable is 42, the answer to life, the universe, and everything. The answer to the question that hasn't been asked yet. Horseshoe says he redacts his previous statement. Yes, as you should. I am old and decrepit. I'm so old. How old are you? I'm so old that when I cough, dust comes out. And yellow. Well, I've painted everything up that I want to paint up tonight, and so I'm about an hour ahead of myself, and I'm really not up to painting much else. Again, I was talking about getting burnt out on things. I don't want to get burnt out, so the next thing I'm going to do is probably do all the canteens and drum heads and little bits and bobs. Probably start working on the metallic bits like the gun barrels and the flagpole the tips on the flagpoles and the little spear that the sergeant has, which there's an actual name for that. Spadroon? Is that correct? Spadroon? Spadroon? So, yeah, so old my music is classic rock now. Yes, it is. It is nice to get the core paint done. Yep. Get everything blocked in. Do a wash. Go back, pick out the details. Re-highlight. Bring things up again. Yeah, I'm looking forward to being done with. I say I'm looking forward to being done with this project. I have enjoyed it despite its challenges. Well, that's why we do what we do is because of the challenges, right? If we didn't, if nothing challenged us, we would never get better at it, right? And if we never allow ourselves to be challenged, we can't grow. Think of a muscle. It only gets stronger if there's resistance. Think of the turtle, the lowly turtle. The lowly turtle only makes progress when they stick out their neck. So, think about that. That's a little, there's some inspirational messaging for you. So, burnout is bad. Take breaks, chill, and do other things. Get back to painting when it feels right. Don't feel pressured into pushing past what you want to do. Exactly, T-shirt. And I think I'm at a good place. I feel happy with what I've done tonight. Nothing was really going bad with this paint job tonight. I did have a couple of nights there where the white was just not looking white, and I would thin it down and it would kind of flow all over the place, and I'd spend time mopping it back up. And there was a couple of streams ago I just was not having a good time with it. So I'll probably get back to it a little bit this weekend, but of course this weekend I don't stream. Next Saturday I will be streaming 4 o'clock p.m. Same time on Thursday, 7 o'clock. If I'm not here, check my Facebook or my Instagram. I also have a Discord. Facebook, Instagram, I've got a Discord as well. That's where I usually keep updates as to what's going on, if I'm going to be able to make it on in the evening, or if I get home and I'm not up to it. If I'm just feeling pooped and work is taking too much out, sometimes I don't. But generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, 7 o'clock Thursday nights and every other Saturday. I call it the Super Alternate Saturday Show, or the SAS, if you will. All right, let's see. Burnout's bad. Yep, man, it was fast to get old. I could never work for a miniature company. That push to get minis done in a certain amount of time, man, it would burn me the heck out. Yeah, absolutely. How do I prefer to paint my horses? So the way I paint my horses, now with 20, this is how I paint my horses in 28 millimeter. What I do is I'll do an undercoat of their base color, gray or brown or whatever. Whatever color the horse is going to be. And then instead of just highlighting like the muscles, now this is so small I probably will just do highlights. But on 28 millimeter, what I try to do is I look at the regular, an actual picture of a horse, and I will add texture just by painting little dashes. So my first highlight will be all dashes, and I'll try to simulate the direction that the hair flows in. And then I'll do my second highlight on top of that, the same thing. So I get that actual hair texture to it. So that's how I do my horses in 28. Sometimes I'll throw a wash on there to kind of delineate the musculature. But then if the wash starts to looks like it pulled up, I'll go back and do little highlights there. But usually I can push it around. Washes can be both rewarding and tricky. A lot of people make the mistake, they put too much on and they wind up getting tide marked. It's one of those things. It's a skill, but everybody has their own way of doing it. Sometimes people will let that tide mark stay and they'll go back with their base color and clean it up. or they'll try to take it and say it's pooling up. They'll move it around to other places, or they'll just mop it away. But I mean, there's lots of different ways to do horses. Now, 28s I do differently than 15s. 15 is just going to be, this will probably be a chestnut. So I might do a chestnut. I might throw a couple of socks on here, maybe a blaze on the forehead. I don't know. Just depends on how fancy I want to get. Obviously the general, that's a special figure, so I'm going to spend a little more time on him. So, let's see, what did you do? Oh, yeah. Yeah, generally, Horseshoe, I try to keep this family-friendly channel, so usually most common swear words are, I've got them on a block list. It's just, people have kids, and I try to keep it, if you work clean, you can work everywhere, so it's nothing against you, and it's nothing against anybody else, but I try to keep it fairly clean on my channel like that, so. But now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Kids are the things that stay in your house for 20 years and eat your food and run up your electric bill. That's kids. Didn't make it. Don't know. There was only one phaser hit. Yeah. Yep. Kids. Me too. No kids here, but I know other people that have kids, and it's just not something I really use myself. So it's just one of those things. I wanted to make it a friendly place, especially since I do paint and takes, and the paint and takes, I have a lot of kids that participate in paint and takes, and I always tell them and their parents, hey, if you want to watch some painting content that I do every week, here's my channel. So I just try to keep it family friendly, so to speak. So yeah, I do have certain words blocked. Some people don't like that. Some people think that's horrible, and whatever. I just try to be. We keep it light. We don't get upset here, So I think sometimes words like that breed anger. They're angry words, and even if you aren't not angry about a particular thing, those words just have that intensity that always have people on edge. And it just seems like these days everybody's on edge about something, You can say, I like the green grapes rather than the purple grapes, and somebody's going to have a problem with it, Have I ever gotten any kids to come on here? I don't think so. I have had people that have been at the paint and takes tune in. Dollar Dylan, I don't remember if you remember Dollar Dylan or not, but he used to show up in chat here. He participated in some of my paint and takes, and thank you, Horseshoe. I do a lot of paint and takes, and I really enjoy it. Passing the things I enjoy on to other people and seeing them enjoy the hobby, and hopefully they will stick with it, or make it a part of their life. You teach a kid to paint miniatures and they'll never have money for drugs. Miar says he needs some drives. I've done 2 or 3. They give me drive to paint. Yes, absolutely. They're a nice place to, if somebody's never painted a miniature but they want to try, it's a nice no judgment zone, and you can also ask questions about how to do things. It's a great place to get your foot in the door. Try it the first time. You can always ask questions. And it's a free miniature, so you're not out any money if you mess it up. And quite honestly, these Reaper figures that I use, and I use a lot of Reaper figures in my paint and takes. You know, you paint this dude up, and let's say you don't like the paint job, you take it home and you don't like the paint job, and you're like, I can do better than that. You're looking at it and you say, well, I have these problems. You can dunk it. All you got to do is throw this dude in some isopropyl alcohol, 90% isopropyl, just rubbing alcohol. Chuck him in there for a couple hours and take an old toothbrush to it. You know, just take an old toothbrush to it and cleans that old paint right off, and you can go at it again. True, minis are more expensive than drugs. They can be. I'm a vet, and swearing was a common thing. I try not to now. Yeah, I understand. I mean, you know, and vocalization is different than typing as well. You know, just because somebody says something and uses it in real life, sometimes typing, I'm like, why did people waste time typing that word or these words instead of just saying what they want to say? Yeah, it's kind of funny. Let's see. Miar says, I swear I try to limit or correct it, but the people I work with, oof, it's surprising I don't cuss more. Understand. I hear that. Yep. Yeah, it's just not a big part. I've tried to make it not a part of my life. Like I said, I didn't grow up around it. My family was very much from the old school, where it just wasn't something that, it wasn't what people would say, you know. So they just never really used it. So I never really did. Thought military was dumb, then I got out and realized it was worse out as a civilian. It can be. Well, there's things that you got used to doing, and there's certain levels of discipline and things that you're used to doing a certain way. You kind of get institutionalized, and you get out and you realize that other people aren't doing it, or they don't take this thing as seriously as you do, and it kind of gets you a little out of joint, and then you realize, well, the things that you're doing you don't have to do anymore. Yeah, so anyhow, it is 10:20. We've had good production tonight. Everything, I'm making more and more progress. Join me again next Thursday night at 7 o'clock, where we'll do some more. Well, actually, we'll probably do some more this weekend if I have time. But I'm going to be doing a lot of home improvement this weekend, I think. So, and definitely, if you're not subscribed to my Instagram, check that out. Also, if you want highly detailed but inexpensive figures, check out Next Level Miniatures. Use my code ROCKET5, ROKKIT, followed by the number 5. That's ROCKET5 for 5% off your order at Next Level Miniatures. Also, use my code Rocket Fuel if you need a pick-me-up at W Energy Drink. That's W Energy Drink, W.GG, with my code Rocket Fuel, ROKKITFUEL, Rocket Fuel, for 10%. Actually, right now, W has a 20% off offer if you use my code right now this week. 20% off your purchase at W.GG if you use my code Rocket Fuel, ROKKITFUEL. So those are my two sponsors. Those are my two sponsorships. Check them out. Next Level Miniatures and W Energy Drink. Maybe you'll find something there that you like. If you do, use my codes. And yeah. Don't forget to, if you're watching YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you are on Rumble, like, share, and subscribe. And if you are on Twitch and you're not following yet on Twitch, go ahead and hit that follow. Consider supporting the channel with a subscription. I believe there's a deal with subscriptions this month. I'm not sure. I don't really keep up with that because, you know, hey, I'm doing it for free. Miar's been supporting me for a while, so I appreciate that. Long-time supporter of the channel. Good guy. Hopefully we get to hang out again soon sometime. And yeah, 7 o'clock next Thursday and then the following Saturday. And as always, remember, no matter how bad today might have been for you, the sun is coming up tomorrow and the world is a better place with you in it. Keep on painting, keep on playing. Good night, everybody. End of stream.